last year now. And these are going to be recorded, as you just heard, recording in process. But the reality is, we want to make sure that you are aware of where your supports are, your advocacy is, and information that can help you in and during your county contract. And like today's speaker, also understanding how we get to this point that affords you different opportunities to be a small business. So I'm always going to be tooting BOA, Business Opportunity Act. But we also want you to meet different agencies, different individuals who can tell you things about working for the county that benefits you. So that's my spiel for the morning. I also want to remind you that with all these series that you can also go back and revisit, you're never going to have all your answers. That's why as a small business, it is your responsibility to reach out to us, reach out to our office, and make sure we can entertain and answer any questions that you might have. But with that being said, thank you for joining us today. I hope this has value for you as we go forward. And yes, even if you're on here and you don't have a county contract, or you're looking to get a county contract, or you've had multiple contracts, the information that we're sharing in this 3-part series is going to benefit you and also make sure that you're aware who to reach out to. Thanks again. So now I'll turn it over to the Small Business Manager, Ms. Donna Ann Knapp.
Thank you, Sandy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the first installment in 2025 of OESBD's semi-annual series titled You Have a Contract, Now What? As Sandy mentioned, the workshop series was created to inform small businesses of the performance expectations they need to meet upon being awarded a Broward County contract, as well as to share useful information and available resources to aid in their success. However, the content will be beneficial for any vendor that's awarded a contract with Broward County. Even if this isn't your first contract, we're sure to share some information that you'll find useful. Today's session, as with all our sessions in the series, as Sandy mentioned, will be recorded. We've allotted an hour for the actual presentation, and then we'll have 30 minutes for audience Q&A. We ask that you tell us who you are and network with each other in the chat, but we're asking, please use the Q&A tab for any questions that you have. You can submit those throughout the presentation at any given point, but once the presentation concludes, that's when we'll start addressing those questions. You're here with me, so I know you've registered for today's session. So before introducing today's presenter, I'd like to remind you that this is only day 1 of a 3-part series. Tomorrow, Tuesday, March 4th, will be another virtual session. CareerSource Broward's Business Services Manager, Douglas Sains, will be sharing ways that CareerSource Broward can improve your bottom line. The 3rd session, which will be the final session in this installment, will be presented this Thursday, March 6th, by the Broward County Building Code Division, and Code Enforcement Supervisor Delroy Aiken's presentation will focus on best practices in relation to code enforcement requirements, and will also address the potential impact of proposed bills on Broward County licensing requirements. Thursday's session is a little bit different in that it will be a hybrid. This means you'll have the option to attend in person or online. It'll still be from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., but for in-person attendees, a live session will be held at the Broward County Building Code Division office located at 2307 West Broward Boulevard, Suite 300, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33312. At some point during today's session, we'll probably ask you to give us an indication of if you'll attend in person or if you're going to be joining us online. That way we can ensure we have enough seating at that venue. Now, back to the session at hand. Today, you'll be hearing from Marty Cassini. He's the director of Broward County's Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. And if you've been paying attention to recent state legislative bills, some of which are poised to impact small businesses, you'll want to understand the role of this Broward County agency. So now, without further delay, I'd like to welcome today's presenter, Mr. Marty Cassini. Marty, over to you.
Well, good morning. Can you hear me? Am I good?
Yes, you are. Yes, we can.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, Donna Ann, and of course, Sandy. It's always a pleasure working with you. My name is Marty Cassini. I am the director of Broward County Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, and wanted to give you an overview of the legislative process. So if you'd move to the next slide. So the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs at Broward County is the primary advocacy arm of the county to ensure that policies that the county commission approves is communicated to properly in both Tallahassee and Washington, D.C., which is actually where I am giving you this presentation from today. If you'd move to the next slide. So I'd really like to give an overview of generally our office, the process, and then of course take any questions. Next slide. Next slide. Yes. So we actually have quite a few different things that we do when it comes to intergovernmental affairs. I know that it sounds kind of primordial, but first and foremost, of course, is advocacy. And when we talk about advocacy, it's generally a narrative that we have to communicate to policy leaders in both DC and Tallahassee to ensure that the story is told. And what I mean by the story is what is actually affecting the lives and the businesses that are operating in the space in Broward County. So we generally work with all of our agencies across the county, whether it be the port, the airport, human services, resilient environment, and of course, OESBD, just to name a few. We talk regularly with our department directors and our liaisons to ensure that the story that we tell is true and how policy affects our agencies and, of course, businesses as well. Our coordination is something might pop up where an executive agency makes a decision or some kind of new rule. And then we generally go and have a conversation behind the scenes where we try to ameliorate a situation or come up with a different plan that or different idea that would make something, something work, whether it be in the environmental area, whether it affects something that our parks and recreation department are doing. It's very specific to those different areas. We also have general administration over the advisory boards. So we track about 68 different advisory boards, and we serve as the general appointment liaison, putting appointments onto the agenda, and then of course administration, when we ensure that board members understand their roles as people that would like to give advice to the county commission, and of course remind members on our advisory boards that there are very specific rules when it comes to sunshine, quorum, and how meetings should generally be run. And we also have the grants portfolio for the county. So we track all of the different grants that the county applies for. And we also decide which grants we should go after, depending upon whether or not we think that we will be successful in getting those grants, or whether or not we have the capability to follow through on those specific grants. Next slide. So the way that we start with our advocacy is we create a program, and the program really sets the stage for what does the county commission want us to accomplish in both Tallahassee and Washington, D.C. Every year we put together a program that is basically a document that just discusses our policies and procedures when it comes to advocating in Tallahassee. Specifically, The county commission adopted a state program just last month that talks about their priorities. What are they interested in? What are they looking for help with? And what are the best ways that we can work with the state to make certain things better? Annually, I can tell you that the county commission has been very, very, very interested in ways to expand affordable housing. And that continues to be the #1 priority of the county commission. There has been quite a bit of legislation that has moved to try to streamline affordable housing developments and really fund a lot of the opportunities that that affordable housing brings, because it helps. It helps. It helps very much when it comes to pretty much everything else when you think about housing in terms of healthcare, whether you think about economic opportunities, critically important. One of the other, some of the other priorities that the county commission has is, of course, trying to help with the homelessness situation, economic development, specifically as it comes to training opportunities, apprenticeships. We also have environmental protection is one, and of course, transportation, which is also becoming a very important position that we look at when it comes to intermodal, new ways to create intermodal opportunities. And once that program is then accomplished, we take that program and we discuss it with our elected officials. We go to Tallahassee in person. We have conversations on certain pieces of policy. We ask them to file bills. We ask them to file appropriations requests on our behalf for anything from mental health services to different ideas about Baker Act and removing, sorry, my script is gone. Excuse me. Sorry, Baker Act, allowing individuals who are subject to the Baker Act to be transported to different facilities in ambulances instead of maybe a law enforcement vehicle. And then, of course, we do manage our different firms that we have that we're contracted with, which are different lobbyists, different groups. And so we try to leverage relationships between elected officials and lobbyists to ultimately get our desired policy that we're looking for. Next slide. And again, yes, we of course we go and we talk with our elected officials on a regular basis. I'm actually going to the Hill later this afternoon to go discuss a couple of county priorities with our legislators on both sides, of course, both in the House and the Senate. We engage with members from the executive branch and generally try to, again, narrate the story. What is happening locally? What can be done that's better? What are our pressure points? Where are we feeling issues that are happening, not just with our residents, but of course our businesses? How do we ensure that Broward County is marketed in the world when it comes to the Convention and Visitors Bureau? What are some of the laws that might affect that negatively? We do track all bills that are filed in Tallahassee and Washington, D.C., and we engage with our departments to understand what the impact would be of this of those pieces of legislation. We keep that in somewhat of a matrix, so to say, and ensure that when these bills are up for review in front of a committee, which we'll get to in a little bit of what that process looks like, engage with either the sponsor or engage with our delegation members to ensure that they understand what the county's position is before they have to take a vote, either in support or in opposition of. We do have the ability to provide public testimony, specifically in front of the state, while not the same on the federal level. We do have questions that we provide to our federal legislators, so that if a head of an executive agency comes before them during a committee, we will have them ask certain questions if they're so inclined, to ensure that either one of our projects or one of our policy positions is properly communicated. And of course, we also are very involved with our state and federal associations, which is exactly where I am right now at the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference, where the entire association, all of the counties across the country come together, and we have discussions about what our policy positions would be in front of Congress and in front of the White House. And we put together these policy positions so that they understand that what the counties want to accomplish, and how as a whole we can do better work for both our residents and businesses. Next slide. So we'll start with the state legislative process. When you look at the bills that are filed, there are a number of different types of bills that exist, and you will find that generally the most recognizable type of bill that you would see would be a general bill. And this bill is something that comes in the form of an idea by a legislator, usually comes from someone in the state somewhere that wants to affect a policy, prevent some type of behavior or some kind of business, some kind of business structure. Those are the ones that are generally done by legislators personally, and then moved through the process. Very few make it. I can tell you that most of the general bills, I'd say about the average would be about 2,000 general bills are filed a year, and probably about, I'd say 10 to 20% of them are ever really put into actual law. Committee bill is something that is done by the committee, with usually the chair of the committee that does something it's overall legislation that affects one of those areas of jurisdiction that we'll get into in a little bit, and usually moves on without much opposition because of the fact that they are either trying to update certain standards that need to be changed, or to end a particular practice that might not have any more relevance. A joint resolution is something that would affect the Constitution of the state of Florida, meaning that the bill, if it was passed by the House and the Senate, and then it would go to the next election, where the electorate would have to pass it by the threshold of 60% in order to put that and amend the Constitution. A local bill is only applicable to the county that is sponsoring the local bill. Now, local bills actually supersede general law, and generally apply to a specific situation or a specific area within a county, whether it be the annexation of property into a city, or something relating to a special district. Local bills are filed into the House of Representatives, and once passed all of its committees and the House, it basically goes to the Senate, and the Senate does a consent agenda, and any senator who has jurisdiction over one of those counties can actually pull one of the local bills from that consent agenda. The public records exemption is exactly what it means. Sunshine law is very strong in the state of Florida, and there are certain exemptions that they would have. There is a time limit to the amount of there's a 3-year time limit for public records exemptions that need to be reviewed constantly, and they automatically repeal if they're not redone. And then, of course, if you have a repealer, that's basically just getting rid of laws that are either outdated or the legislature has decided that they're no longer needed. And then when it comes to appropriations, there are member projects. You can ask your state representative and senator to file a member project on your behalf. If you do want to ask money for something from the legislature, you do need to have a sponsor in both the House and the Senate, and that needs to be put into the underlying budget that is done during the session. The conforming bills conforms different laws to the actual budget, ensuring that the budget is done in a specific way as directed by the legislature. And those conforming bills are generally or are always, they just last for 1 year. And then they expire as the General Appropriations Act is put into play. Next slide. So once bills are filed, they are referred to certain committees. And as you can see here, the committees are specific to areas that encompass what the bill is intended to do. So if you are trying to file a bill to change the way that banks operate their processing of certain fees, it would go to the Banking and Insurance Committee. It would probably also go to Rules, perhaps Judiciary, depending. One of the main ones that we see our bills go to, that we track, is in Community Affairs, that deals with local government issues. But you can imagine that a specific issue that pops up in any bills could have multiple references, and you would generally have 3 to 4, I guess I should say 2 to 4 committees of reference. When you look at the appropriations committees, they generally put together a base budget and pass it out as the yearly budget that they would recommend. They're generally not the same between the House and the Senate. There are usually differences, and sooner or later they'll move to a conference in order to agree line by line what is going to be funded and what won't be funded. And then, of course, the joint committees that oversee a number of different issues relating to oversight, auditing, and procedures. Next slide, please. So the bill filing deadline is actually the day when session starts. So although there have been a couple changes to that over the years, all bills needed to be filed by House members into the bill drafting process last Friday. And once the bill has been agreed to be heard by the chair of the specific committee, it pulls up on an agenda that, of course, is again tracked by our office. And then amendments are able to be put onto bills. Sometimes the amendments are considered friendly, which are generally approved, and some amendments are considered to be unfriendly, which then go to either a vote by a voice vote or just a general vote by person. Next slide. So the floor procedure moves at a very interesting pace. It can be very fast, or sometimes it can be very slow. It just depends upon how each chamber is operating on the day. But the bills are put into what you call the second reading. Second reading is when you are still able to amend the bill on the floor, and you are able to, again, offer amendments to the bill. And then members generally ask questions of the bill on second reading, and they're able to ask questions, but there's no debate. And sometimes that line is a little bit blurred, but it's critical that members keep their comments to questions. And so once the amendment process has been done, and once that's finished, the bill is then rolled over to what is called third reading. And then third reading is when the fireworks start. If there is any debate on the bill, and once debate is closed by the rules of either the House or the Senate, a final vote, it moves to the final vote. Again, you generally don't get amendments on the third reading. The bill is usually in its final form. And again, going back to joint resolutions, yes, it needs to pass with a 2/3 vote. They bounce their bills back and forth with different amendments depending upon what the House and Senate sponsors want. But the bills must pass with identical language in order to be sent to the governor. Next slide, please. So going back to the appropriations process again, you have to file these appropriation requests as specific bills. You can actually go to the House and Senate websites and get a list of everything that everyone is across the state is requesting. And once those bills are approved by the chair that were selected to go into the process, go on to a consent agenda and in the subcommittees. And then once those subcommittees create their recommended budgets, that, as I previously stated, they are then a part of that chamber's budget. And then again, the budgets are then elevated from their specific committees of jurisdictions to the full appropriations committee, where they put together their budget and then pass it out. So at that point, the House and the Senate generally have two different versions of a budget for the state of Florida. And then they go into a conference committee. And the conference committee is where you have your chairs from both the House and Senate looking at a spreadsheet and agreeing or disagreeing to every single line. You have the House on one side, you have the Senate on the other, and then they just start negotiating down what is available and which part of the budget they are going to agree to. Sometimes they approve it and they agree to accept the position. Sometimes there's a different position that they might take. But ultimately, it is the only thing that the legislature is required to do during session. is to pass the budget. They don't have to pass any other bill, but they only have to pass the budget. And there have been many past sessions where they were unable to agree during the session, and so they had to move on to a special session after. But it is the number one and only thing that they have to accomplish. Next slide. So after session ends, we start to have conversations about bills that we worked on during session. And we look to the governor to veto legislation that we don't like. We send letters of support for legislation that we support. And it's very it's a very important process, just to make sure that our position is known, because of the fact that, you know, it's either in our program or our county commission, you know, may have passed a resolution. But it's critical for us to ensure that the governor knows, or the governor's office knows, where we stand on a bill. And then after that part, we start working with our departments and the county attorney's office to ensure that the law is analyzed, and we are able to then put it into specific procedure when it comes to regular county operations. And this obviously happens on a yearly basis. Next slide. So when we talk about the federal advocacy, it's a little bit different because of the fact that the feds are in session for what you consider a congressional session. That happens every 2 years, and it's based upon the election of the House of Representatives, which occurs at the same time. So if you have a presidential election, which we just had last year, you have the election of your House of Representatives and perhaps any senator that's up for re-election, although their term is 6 years. The congressional session is again required to pass budgets or continuing resolutions, which I think we might get into in the rest of this presentation. And I'm happy to discuss that after this presentation as well, with what's happening up here in Washington, D.C. relating to continuing resolutions. And then, of course, they also pass policy bills. Next slide. So we do the same thing for the federal program. It's done every 2 years. And again, you know, we have lobbyists in Washington, D.C. that we also count on to constantly communicate our point of whatever issue that we're looking to either accomplish or to oppose. And then they've actually, over the past, I'd say, 4 years, brought back what are called now community project funding requests. That's just a new term for what everyone used to know as earmarks. And you ask an office of either the House or the Senate to file on your behalf and get into the budget so that you get direct funding from one of those offices in the budget. A lot of those community project funding requests are actually in a little bit of limbo right now because of the fact that the new budget has not been approved, and they haven't closed out last year. So as a result, some of these, like I said, these community project funding requests are still in limbo. We actually have a $4 million project funding request to raise the Sheridan Bridge that goes over the turnpike, and we're actually having conversations with the Department of Housing and Urban Development about whether or not we did the proper environmental review for the bridge. So it's very nuanced, very technical. And then, of course, we bring department directors, commissioners, anyone up here to really communicate what's happening locally and support, whether it's an organization um, like the Airports Council, the Ports Council. We really try to ensure that all of these narratives are properly communicated to our federal partners. Next slide. I am happy to take any questions. Happy to discuss any specific pieces of legislation.
Thank you very much, Marty. Very, very helpful, very useful information. I'm looking at the Q&A box. I'm seeing not for you specifically, but there's one question. I was unable to get on earlier. Will a recording be provided?
Oh.
I think we know now. Yes, it will be.
Yes.
There's another question. Not sure if this is appropriate for you or not, but what is the Sunshine Law?
Very, very, very good question. So the Sunshine Law is a requirement under state statute that requires that when two members of the same governing body are having a conversation, they are not allowed to discuss any matter that will come before that body or would presumed to be coming before that body. So if you have two commissioners that are having a private conversation and they are discussing they're discussing something relating to let's say human services and the way that they appropriate funds to some kind of service, they are not allowed to discuss that because of the fact that it wouldn't be done publicly. It wouldn't be done in an open forum where members of the public could come together and really listen and understand what is going on. You're not allowed to cut deals. You're not allowed to have any kind of gentleman's agreement, for lack of a better term, before a vote. And it's very, very, very important that members of the commission, members of our advisory boards understand that they are not supposed to talk about those things privately, that it has to be done in the sunshine. Furthermore, sunshine also requires all meetings done of public entities be posted. So you have to give notice. The notice period is considered a reasonable time. The county looks at it as about 10 days, but generally our agendas are posted 13 days before the meeting actually happens to allow people to review, to allow residents to speak with their commissioners privately about some of their concerns or perhaps support of an issue. And minutes have to be taken of the meeting, and it has to be in an open forum where people can actually enter the building and not be pushed away or turned away because of some kind of thing. We don't want governmental bodies making decisions without the input of the public, of our residents, and of course of our businesses as well.
Thank you, Marty. We have a couple additional questions from the same attendee. The question says, I haven't gotten a contract yet. However, what is the process once you do? What should we already have prepared? Who would I connect with to discuss that? If you don't mind, Marty, I'm going to field that question.
Sure.
So for anyone who's just joining this session for the first time and hasn't been in attendance of one of our previous sessions, the series is created to provide information on best practices, things that business owners should know when they receive their first contract, whether they're the prime contractor or the subcontractor. We've had agencies, Broward County agencies, participate and provide such information for best practices from our standpoint to avoid pitfalls. The series is also created to provide information and resources. This session would be under the information category. And I see a question that kind of hits closer to home in terms of the connection between you have a contract, now what, and Marty's presentation. So I'm going to read that one in a minute. But there are various legislature that have been proposed recently, some of which could impact the way that contracts are issued to small businesses. Certain clauses or requirements could be impacted. So we'll get to that in just a second. But in terms of who you can connect with to discuss that, we still have a competitive procurement process. So once you're in a position where you have been awarded a contract, if it's with a specific Broward County agency, one that we haven't highlighted yet, we can definitely help with that. You can go ahead and email me. My email address is D like Donna, K as in King, N as in Nancy, A as in Apple, P as in Peter, P as in Peter at broward.org, and I'll try to assist you. If it's that you haven't been awarded one and you're just wondering what the procurement process is, we can share that with you as well. So hopefully that does address your question. That also addresses the second one from that same attendee. So let me go down to another, which says, please discuss the recent bills that impact the county's small business development programs, particularly how we set goals for local small businesses that are certified in the county.
So I would actually go back to last session, which had a major effect on the contracts that the county has had. When you look at the CBE requirements under certain contracts, specifically when it comes to construction contracts, actually, let me rephrase that as a public works contract. There is a statute which used to say that counties were able to hire who they wanted to, whether it be someone who was local, provide preference points for local government or local businesses as opposed to those outside of the jurisdiction. The county was able to place apprenticeship requirements onto different local businesses to ensure that a lot of the maybe the technical schools or colleges were being like a feeder system into the workforce. The legislature last year passed House Bill 705, which essentially said that local governments can't use their own money to do those things anymore. And we were very much opposed to the bill because of the fact that we were not in support of it. We did advocate against it. We explained the impact that it would have, and interestingly enough, the bill has actually caused a lot more confusion than anything else, which leaves a paralyzing effect due to the confusion of how it applies to certain businesses within Broward County. I have not seen much of anything lately in terms of new legislation that's been filed that would either undo these things, that to do that legislation, unfortunately. I know that perhaps the licensure issue. I know many of you probably are still under one of those specialty licenses issued by the county. That has been extended over the last two sessions by Senator Hooper. It is a priority for the Florida Association of Counties to ensure that that specialty licensure is actually extended again. They have had multiple conversations with the sponsor, and he has not told them or us, what he intends to do on that this year. I think that there's a good chance that it gets extended again, unless there's some kind of comprehensive legislation that comes out as a committee bill that really starts to define, how local governments can provide those specialty contracts, or excuse me, those specialty licenses for contractors in the county. Of course, we'll communicate it immediately once something like that happens. But last year, it literally came up in the last week of session, was tacked onto a bill and passed. So
Marty, can you tell me, is Senate Bill 742 paired with House Bill 705? Or what's the relationship there?
705 from last year. Second, pull it up. 705 was from last year. Yes, the 742 was the Senate bill. So I guess I should have included that in my presentation. Only one bill passes, not both.
Okay.
So whenever you have two bills that are identical, the one that passes is ultimately the one that goes to the that is sent from one chamber to the other. And then when the agreement of the language occurs, that's the bill that passes. So 705 was substituted for 742 and passed to 705.
Thank you. Let me see if there are
You
any
can get
questions.
very you can get very in-depth and very nuanced.
Well, the questions are starting to come in now. I think I answered the one about this content being a little bit different. I think this is our first informational one, but hopefully the attendees can now draw the parallel between the bills that are being floated and the impact possibly on some of our programs and how contracts are set. So the next question that is here is, I'm not sure if you can hit this one, Marty, but how does new DEI federal policies affect contract awards to sheltered groups in the county? Example, veteran, women's owned, etc.
It's a very good question. DEI is in a state of flux right now due to the president's recent executive orders. It has been a topic of conversation that has gone on since, well before the election. When you look at the actual executive order and how it's applicable to certain things or certain contracts or any kind of I think specifically sheltered groups, looks like veteran, women-owned. There's some uncertainty, and the uncertainty is all about the fact that these executive orders are pretty much all being litigated right now. And the litigation has perhaps stopped some of these orders from going into effect, but it's usually specific to the plaintiff that is filing the bill. It's just very, unfortunately right now, very uncertain in terms of how that applies to existing contracts.
I think we're all waiting to see at this point.
Yes.
Let's see. There is another question that came in. How do you check if your CBE SBE registration is still current? I'll take that one. You can go to broward.org/econdev, and use our local certification directory. It's right there on our OESBD page. It looks like a little arrowhead. It says directory. As soon as you land on the page, you can look up your company's name and the directory is current. If you don't see your name there, chances are you would have received a notice of intent to be decertified and or decertification letter. Otherwise, your name will be there until we remove you. You can also call the office at 954-357-6400 if for some reason you forgot to submit your documentation and that's the issue, and we'll try to help you. Let's see the next one that came in. Okay, I'm not sure I'm clear on the question, but I'll give it a shot. If we've not gotten a contract now after 10 years being certified, and this is about you have a contract now, what? Is there a policy or politics that's stopping the contracts now? No, I don't believe there is a policy that would halt contracts right now. But what we're discussing are possible bills, both local and federal, that could impact the way contracts are issued and possibly impact small business participation. So hopefully that answers your question. The last one I think is rhetorical, so I'm going to skip that one. REDEI executive order. Oh, I think it's the same person. They were asking also about the DEI and all groups being treated equally. So just a quick comment. Broward County has two small business programs, two sets of small business programs. One is our local certification program. And so that would be impacted, as Marty had mentioned before, by state bills from the state of Florida. That local program, however, is not based on race or gender. It is strictly economic factors such as gross receipts, personal net worth, number of employees, and these things all speak to the size of the business and the eligibility to be certified under the program. Additionally, because these programs were created for local small businesses, one of the requirements is to be eligible, the small business would have to be located in Broward County and operating consistently for 12 consecutive months before they could apply. So the race and gender component of any bills, whether state or federal, would not impact it in that way because it was never a part of the program's eligibility requirements. It's not considered to be certified on the local program. The federal program, however, and that's our disadvantaged business enterprise, airport concession, disadvantaged business enterprise, that's a national program. Those are two separate national programs. Those do have a race and gender component to them. So those could potentially be impacted by a DEI executive order. But again, we're all waiting to hear. We're not in any way litigating any bills or forming opinions on them. This is just a general overview so that our small business owners are aware. Let me see. I think we addressed
definitely
that one.
follow the law on that one.
Yes. Okay, the person said thank you.
We have one more question in the chat. Are there any updates about the HB 735 and the HB 1383? Are they permanent now?
You look at that up real quickly. 735, you said?
Yes.
And 735 from last year? Because 735 is not a bill that passed last year.
Okay. And then the other one was HB 1383.
Let me check. 1383. That bill did not move.
Does that mean the bill is dead, Marty, or just suspended?
From last year?
Yeah.
It was not, it did not pass. It didn't even receive a hearing. would probably come back, I would imagine, but let me check. Let me check real quickly. Doesn't look like it's been filed again.
Thank you. All right, I think I've read all the questions in the Q&A. Marty already answered the one about small business development programs and how we set goals. Well, he wouldn't answer the how we set goals portion of it, but ultimately what would happen is once the bill is effective as law, then the county would then decide how it intends to proceed. But we haven't gotten to that point yet. And as I said, I don't think we'll be discussing policy on today's session. I'm not authorized to do that for sure. So right now it's just to inform you or answer any questions about any bills. Right, I think I've gotten all of them.
I see that other open question. What is the connection between your office and a business owner acquiring a contract? I don't have any real opportunity to engage with business owners on acquiring contracts. Happy to steer you into the right direction, depending upon what kind of business you have, to the right person, so that one of our county employees can help you. But I'm not authorized to do any of that.
I think the connection between Marty's office and subcontracts or contracts would be they're involved in the legislative process and expressing Broward County's opinions and desires on bills as they arise. And ultimately, those bills, should they become law, could impact the contracts and the way we issue contracts. That's the correlation.
Yep.
There's another question. How do I go about getting a sponsor from the state?
Ooh, that's a good question. Personal engagement with your elected officials. You can go to the site, either the Florida House or Florida Senate, and finding out, who is your representative, who is your senator, and having a conversation with them about your specific issue that you're looking to accomplish. Um, it's again, that's kind of what I had just presented on, was we go talk to our members and we secure sponsors and we convince them to file something for us. And then once we file it, we are talking with the chair of the committee. We're talking with other members of the committee to ensure that they understand what we're trying to accomplish, why it's a good idea, and what kind of benefits we think it will bring to our residents. So, good question. I think that window is probably now it's getting closed, but depending upon the issue, you still want to talk with your elected officials to see what can be done. There are always other opportunities, like I said, amendments, or something separate.
Then should any of the bills that Marty discussed get any traction, which ultimately affect any of our Broward County programs or how contracts are issued, of course, that will have to come from our point of direction, which is the Board of County Commissioners. But should that happen, we'll disseminate the information or any changes in programs accordingly. Right, I don't see any other questions. I saw a couple of thank yous, Marty.
Excellent.
So I'll give a last call. Jahar, do you have anything in the chat? If not, I'm gonna round it out a little bit and.
No, I do not.
Perfect, okay. Okay, on the screen is Marty's contact information. However, I emphasize he does not lobby for small businesses. He works for Broward County. So in that regard, it was just to explain his office's role in this process, but that is how you can be
and I
reached.
appreciate that, Donna, and I really do. But I do want I want everybody to know that if you are having some of those issues, talk to OESBD about that, because the OESBD can come to me and explain what are the issues happening in real time, and how can we approach the legislature to ensure that they understand, and to ensure what kind of effects it would have on our programs. So I would definitely suggest that if there is something like that, talk to OESBD, and they will absolutely be in touch with me.
Thank you, Marty. And yes, of course, we're on the watch. So should anything change or any news need to be shared, we'll disseminate it. So I think that brings Marty's presentation to an end. I did want to touch on something someone asked before about checking to see if they were certified. We as an OESBD, offers a Technical Assistance Friday. It is the first and third Friday of every month. And at Nova Southeastern University in the Levan Center, which is located within NSU's library, we have members of our certification team are in a designated location at that site, and they offer one-on-one technical assistance. You do have to make an appointment through our office, 954-357-6400. So if you're interested in becoming certified, whether under the local or federal programs, you can make an appointment to see a member of our team and get some help either on the first or third Friday of the month. And it's not directly on bills, but Marty touched on it. There is a bill that's floated that could potentially impact how Broward County issues its local certificates of competency or local licenses. We're going to hear a little bit more about that on Thursday, which is our third session, but that cues us up. Thank you, team. I wanted to remind you again that this is day one of a 3-part series. So thank you very much again, Marty. We really appreciate your time. I know you had to juggle and reschedule some things to be here with us.
Absolutely, anytime.
Thank you. Tomorrow is going to be day 2, and that's going to be our next session. This one is going to be resources. I think it's the first resource session we'd have had under the You Have a Contract Now What series. Douglas Sainz, who is the Business Services Manager for CareerSource Broward, he's going to be presenting tomorrow, and he's going to be telling business owners about services and resources that CareerSource Broward has in place that can affect your bottom line. They've got some programs where they can actually offer training that might cover the salaries for some of your employees for a finite period of time, but I won't steal any of his thunder. You can tune in tomorrow to hear about all the services that are available. We skip a day. We don't have anything programmed on March 5th, but we come back again for our third and final session in this semi-annual installment. And that's going to be Thursday, March 6th. This one's a little different and a little special. We're doing a lot of things that are new this year. So we're going to have Delroy Aiken. He is the Code Enforcement Supervisor for the Broward County Building Code Division. His presentation is going to focus on best practices, which is what you're all used to for our You Have a Contract Now What series. But he's also going to touch a little bit on the licenses that Broward County issues, because obviously this is the agency that oversees and ensures that these licenses are given out, and how that can impact our small business owners. So if you currently have a local certificate of competency, a local Broward County license, you definitely want to register for this session. It's a hybrid. That means, as I said before at the beginning, during the intro, you can attend in person, and it's going to be at the Building Code Division office, 2307 West Broward Boulevard, Suite 300, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33312. And team, are we going to issue a survey or ask during this presentation if they're going to be doing it hybrid or not? We want to ensure
the survey will be going out via email to those who've registered.
Perfect. Thank you. So if you haven't yet registered, please do go ahead and register. The QR code on the orange sign up now portion of your screen is how you can do that. And if you do sign up for the third session, if you do a construction related trade, this is definitely one you don't want to miss. They do offer licenses for things other than construction. So check that out and let us know if you're going to attend in person or if you're going to attend virtually. It's also all the sessions are from 11 a.m. through 12:30 p.m. They may end a little early. If we get done with the Q&A, they may go a little longer, but that's typically the time frame. May I have the next slide, please, team? One of our signature annual conferences is coming up Friday, May 9th. Registration is free of charge to attend for our businesses. It's not exclusive to small businesses. It encompasses a multitude of industries. So come out if you're a business owner, a small business owner, if you're a contractor seeking to do work with the county. We're going to have owners as well as opportunities, information, sessions. It's a melting pot and a hub of all things business. It's our Broward and Beyond Business Conference. It's going to be at the Broward Convention Center. As I said, registration is free, but you do have to register. You can use the QR code on your screen to do so, and hopefully we'll see you there. May I have the next slide, please? Stay in touch with us. We always have a lot going on in the county and in our office, and the best way to find out about what's happening is with our weekly Business Assistance Weekly e-newsletter. There's a new edition that comes out every Wednesday evening, I think around 6 p.m., and it's chock full of information. We brag on our small businesses that are doing well. We talk about opportunities and hot tips. If there are changes in our programs, hopefully you saw we've been sending some updates. We had some changes recently on the small business programs for our CBE, SBE reserves. It's a little bit nuanced now. If you didn't see it, take a look at that past BA. You're going to want to see it. And if you haven't yet signed up, go ahead and use the QR code on your screen to do so. May I have the next slide, please? You heard from him during our opening remarks and our welcome. Sandy Michael McDonald, our director, that's his contact information there. Many of you who've attended any of our events are probably used to seeing Sandy. He has a strong LinkedIn presence. Feel free to reach out should you need to reach him. And for the office, that's our physical address as well as the office main phone number. And the last slide, I think, is my own. Oh, nope, I misspoke. We do have a quick survey, if you don't mind. Please go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen and take a very brief survey for us. It does help with our programming and the format of our events that we put on. And I'll leave that up there for a second. All right, hopefully you've had a chance to get to it. I already know the next slide is the last slide, which is my slide. I'd like to thank Marty Cassini, Sandy Michael McDonald, the entire CRO team, and the rest of the staff who helped with today's session. Please come back and join us tomorrow. Like I said, you're going to hear more from CareerSource Broward on resources that will help to improve your bottom line. We hope to see you again soon. And if you haven't already done so, please use the Eventbrite link and register. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.